stranger's hand.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Warm Chord Music Podcast. My name is Jay Croft, and today I'm excited not only because I'm recovering from the flu, but I have a killer interview to share with you and some exciting news as well. My new song, Haunted Dreams, is completely finished. That's right, last week I received the mastered version from Grammy-winning mastering engineer Kim Rosen, and I could not be happier with the finished product. So the final step is just getting the artwork done, which is almost completed. Once that's taken care of, I'll have a pre-release thing going on where you can pre-order the track if you want to from iTunes, but I'm going to have it available to stream on YouTube so that you can at least hear it and see the visual of what the cover art looks like, which is pretty freaking awesome so far, if I can say so myself. If you haven't already checked it out, please take a moment and follow Warm Chord Music on Twitter and Facebook, and subscribe to YouTube. That just keeps you in tune with everything going on with both my music and the podcast. Just keeps everything really simple. And of course, check out the website, which is just warmchordmusic.com. So let's go ahead and get into today's podcast. First, I want to recognize Matt Demitz for him being on the show and sharing episode 4 on his Facebook channel. That made a huge difference. So I want to thank all of you out there that are fans of his and hopefully have become fans of the show. We had over 400 downloads for his episode in just that one day, and then like 100 more the next day. So that episode continues to grow in its downloads and extends to other episodes we've had since then. Another episode you should definitely be checking out would be episode 5, which is with Ava Under Fire. Great band. Hoping they're going to share it on their page soon. I'm sure that episode will blow up equally as well with their fan base. But if you haven't listened to that one yet, definitely do it. It's very entertaining. So if you like what you've heard so far from the episodes that we put up, please go to iTunes, subscribe, leave a comment, give a high rating if you don't mind. That helps move this podcast up the charts, I guess, or at least bring more visibility to folks. Brings in new listeners, and hopefully will get us some new guests. So that brings me to a very special guest that I had on the show last week. Her name is Mary Spender. And Mary is a singer-songwriter from Bristol in the UK, which I believe is the southwest region of England, according to Wikipedia. So hopefully that's correct. I didn't do all that great in geography in high school, so Wikipedia is what I went by. So don't shoot me on that one. If you go to YouTube and visit the Warm Chord Music channel, you're going to be able to see the video of this interview, which we did on Skype. So that's exciting. First Skype interview that I've ever done and recorded. And we're going to be doing more of those in the future, especially with the more remote guests that we have. I've got Brian Wampler from Wampler Pedals coming on soon. Robert Baker, who is a guitar player on YouTube, an awesome guitar player. He teaches guitar as well as just has a hell of an entertaining show. Super nice guy. Met him in person at Gearfest and at Sweetwater's Gearfest back in June of 2017. So he'll be on the show, and some local stuff going on that we're setting up an interview for a benefit gig coming up in March, I believe. March or April, I think. So there's a little bit of time before that happens. So a lot of exciting things happening with the podcast. So definitely do me a favor if you could and show your support by going to YouTube or just subscribing on iTunes. So found a video of Mary Spender performing a cover song earlier in 2017, and just love the sound of her voice and her guitar playing. Her voice has this rich, sultry quality to it, but it has this pop sensibility, almost like Norah Jones at times. I wouldn't say that's like a great comparison or anything, but that's what I thought of at the time. She's really good on guitar as well. Just has a really unique style that I enjoyed listening to when we talk about that on the interview. And then one of the things I wanted to talk about is just, sometimes people release music and they do it on YouTube, and you look for it online, you don't find it anywhere else. So definitely go to her YouTube channel if you get a chance. She's got some really cool covers on there. Stevie Wonder song comes to mind called "Isn't She Lovely?" She does a great job on that song. So you want to check out her YouTube channel for sure. And Spotify is where I found her original music, which was a 4-song EP called Faux Americana. It's Faux Americana. It's from 2014, includes 4 very well-crafted songs recorded very professionally. And she's since released more original music, which I purchased the physical CDs of. So last month when I bought those CDs, I included a personal note on the PayPal invoice and asked if she'd be willing to come on the show and talk about her music. And thankfully she agreed by sending a nice note along with the CDs themselves. So I want to thank her for doing that. Very nice personal touch, and much appreciated. So Mary now has 25,000 subscribers to her channel, and I'm sure that number is going to continue to grow. She has about 10,000 Instagram followers, and was recently hired by Shure Microphones, which is a great accomplishment. So congratulations to Mary for that. She's in the process of writing and recording new music, has a new tour coming up. Actually, I think she's on tour right now as we speak. Unfortunately for us in the States, she's not going to be coming to a town near us to perform, but hopefully this podcast will entice you to check her out online and hear how talented she is. At the end of the episode, I'm going to play one of her songs so you can hear for yourself. But for now, let's get to the interview with Mary Spender. Hey.
Hi, sorry, I stepped away from my computer for 1 second and then you rang.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't know if there was more than one Mary Spender out there, so.
Well, let's hope there isn't.
Thanks for taking some time. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So
Is the audio going to be good enough for you?
I think so.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So, how was NAMM?
It was intense, but very good, very successful. Just very busy.
So are you there just for Shure, or I mean, what's the setup when you go there?
It was a mixture of both this time. So mainly for Shure because they were, taking me out there. But I got to do a bit of vlogging and a bit of interviewing myself, and I'm just trying to get through all the footage now. So it's a lot of editing that I'm still yet to do. But there will be some videos coming soon, which is good.
Yeah, I saw the one you did with the guitar player from Maroon 5. That was pretty cool.
I know, that was amazing. Yeah, just a quick Tuesday talk with him was quite a privilege.
Do you get a chance to connect with any of the other YouTubers out there that you've collaborated with over the last couple of years, or no? Too crazy?
Yeah, no, I saw a lot of people. It was like walking into the internet a bit. And I got to meet some guys who I hadn't really met before, like Jared Dines and Stevie T. It was quite amazing that I think some of the biggest things that happened at NAMM were down to social media guitarists. So like the announcement of the British-made Chapman guitars and Jared Dines' 18-string guitar. They were like the biggest things to happen. So it's sort of showing the change and showing the importance of the internet. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, I don't even know how someone could even play an 18-string guitar. That looked insane.
I think that's kind of the point as well. It's right. Just so ridiculous.
Did you keep up with any of the goings-on with him and the scam that happened with him and all that stuff with that guitar?
Yeah, I was aware of it. Yeah, and I watched the videos and for Ormsby to step in and build him something, it was a very clever decision on their part too, I think.
Right. So one of the things I like to try and do on the podcast is just kind of get a little behind the scenes about the songwriting process, recording new albums, recording new songs. You've opened up quite a bit. You put a video out in January kind of showing how you go about writing a song. Did you happen to finish that one? Since you did it?
I did. I finished it quite quickly after putting out the process. So yeah, I just wrote another second chorus, second verse, sorry, and yeah, I've actually got a video of me and Angela Petrelli performing it, and she's an amazing guitarist that's got a huge Instagram following, but is just genuinely a lovely person. And so we've got both of us playing Martin acoustics, both her Martins, and yeah, I think I'll put that out around the same time that I'll release it. And I'm just thinking of releasing more and more music quite quickly, but putting out videos around the songs and just really like using that platform to showcase all the songs that I've got up my sleeve. It's about time that I release some new music. So
Yeah, the last one you put out, was that the Faux Americana one? Is that the last thing you've well, the last thing on Spotify I saw, at least.
yeah, I was pretty cautious for quite a long time about putting out too much before I was ready. So Faux Americana was 2014, which is a very, very long time ago now. And I did release a track a month for a year, but I did it just on SoundCloud because they were sort of more demos than proper studio recordings. And I wanted to pressure myself into writing more and learning how to record myself properly, and then working with a producer at the same time to get those mixed and mastered and stuff. But from that, I chose my 4 favorite tracks and did a physical version of the Taking Shape EP. So that sold quite well since going on Andertons and all the social media stuff happening in the last 6 months. And now I'm like, okay, I can deliver stuff to Spotify. I know it's going to get heard. I know it's going to get played. And I can make YouTube videos showing exactly how I did it and be completely open and honest about how I recorded everything and just show people that how I do it. Just see if I can encourage them to do more too. But just talk about the difficulties of getting original music out there, when it's not played by anybody or listened to by anybody or thought of as good. It's quite demoralizing. So it takes a long time to sort of get yourself mentally prepared to be able to deliver consistently.
Yeah, my friend Matt, I did a podcast with him a couple episodes ago, and he just put out a vinyl, which is like one of the things that I've been wanting to do forever. But right now, with my life and with my kids and everything I have going on, it's song by song. So I have a song that I've been working on from the writing process all the way to getting in the studio. I just got it mastered by Kim Rosen, who's someone who just mastered one of Bonnie Raitt's records or something. That one song has been in process since like July of last year. So it's like, and there's a lot going on with it. So I mean, it's always good to kind of communicate what really goes on behind the scenes. So that video that you put out, I thought that was great because I haven't really seen a lot of YouTubers put stuff out there that kind of really opens the curtains up and say, hey, this is not finished yet. This is what it is. What kind of response did you get from that video from your fans?
People were extremely positive about it. And I think it was one of those videos that it just literally cropped, it raised its head while I was writing a song. I was like, okay, I could just, while I'm thinking everything through and while I'm writing, I can just talk out loud to a camera and it might help the process for me more and justify exactly why I'm making the decisions. And it was a bit of a confidence boost too, because I didn't know whether people would want to listen to me talking about songwriting and how my process behind it. But people were very open, and I'm definitely going to do more of that. I'm working on a video right now as I'm getting a track mastered to go through and show people exactly how I recorded everything. I didn't mix it myself. I got it mixed by a really talented producer because I'm not confident enough to, put my own mix. When you've done everything yourself, it's kind of nice to have someone else to be like, I'd bring that down a little bit, or I'd change that up, or I'd add that in here. It's just nice to have that sort of relationship with another musician. But I'm going to go through and show, the microphone that I used for recording guitars, how I did it, the pedals I used, the guitar I used, the vocal mic, just everything, and just show people that you can do it in your bedroom basically, in a sort of bedroom setup without much sort of studio cost, and get something sounding quite decent. And it's just having the right people and the right team as well.
Yeah, that's exactly one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, because that's everything that I've been trying to do myself is, you can do it yourself. The tools that we have now today, my one of my longtime bandmates I used to be in a band with, we started with, Tascam 4-tracks and maybe a pair of headphones that you could stick in an 1/8-inch jack in the back of a boombox and hit record, and it would actually record. It was like, back then that was like, wow, this sounds great. now you listen to it and it's like, oh my God, what were we thinking? But that's all. We didn't have anything else back then. It really wasn't, I don't think I really got into recording seriously stuff until probably 2007, 2008. And even then, there was the quality of what there is now. It's not even comparable.
Yeah, no, I know. I was using a camcorder once that was broken, and it would record audio but wouldn't record video. And so I'd record audio and then put that onto my very, very old laptop, just take the audio off that and record over and over it. So I was just using literally like the inbuilt mic on a camcorder just to get some demos down. Right. And they sound absolutely terrible. But at least it was sort of before voice memos. It was before iPhones being able to just, have a tool to remember the songs that you're writing and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I never released those.
No, when we were in high school, so this was back like in 95 or something, we had gotten in my parents' basement, and we had put carpets up to try and we didn't know what we were doing. Just thought, put carpets up to block the sound in. We're like, this has got to do something, right? Yeah. So we had it set up where we had a two track tape deck. So it was like my dad's old recorder. So it would record left and right, and you could plug 2 microphones in. It had its own little preamp in it. So we're using like karaoke mics basically. And we just pointed them away from the drums, and we actually were able to get all the instruments balanced out well enough. And my singer at the time was singing on the outside of the carpet. And we used the PA speakers pointed towards both microphones, so that's how you would record the vocals. So everything was done live. And when we wanted to do some panning effects, he would unplug one of the speakers and plug the other one back in. I mean, but we sold that tape for $5, and that's how we raised money to actually go in the studio. I mean, that's what you did whatever you could, so.
Yeah, I'd actually almost like to see a video about that and sort of show the ways that we all used to record before you could afford 200, 300 quid a day in a proper studio. If not, it might have been even more than that. It dropped price as the internet was sort of growing in proficiency and people were able to do a lot more. But yeah, I think that's kind of genius, using the speakers as a panning effect. That's amazing.
We would do a lot of ridiculous things. I think when you're young and you don't, you're fearless and you're not worried about.
It's how you learn, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it forced you to be as proficient as you could at your instrument before you go record, because, I don't know if you've at GitCon, I'm sure you met Glenn Fricker, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I met him at Gearfest at Sweetwater last year, and we did a podcast together, and that guy's just brutally honest. It's like, have your stuff together, before you get in the studio. Try to be as ready as you can instead of trying to go in there and patch it all up, and do punch after punch. I mean, it's back then it's like you got 2 days in the studio to get 8 songs done, get it right,
Exactly. And that was it was a big learning curve when I was young, because when I was 18 and first went in a proper studio, I had all the songs written and all the parts done, and just realizing how tiring it is if you don't have something fully prepared. If you do start writing whilst doing that, it just takes so much longer. And I was very envious of people, all these professional artists being signed to record labels, being like, yeah, we went into the studio for 6 weeks. And I was like, God, that costs so much money. Like, how do you even how do you go in there with no idea? Like I've always felt like I need to be prepared, but that's also the benefit of having a home studio setup, no matter how basic, is that you can take a bit more time, and you can get something slightly better because you do get the time to write and sort of go over things rather than just those 2 days that sort of feel quite rushed and panicked to get all those tracks down.
So you have other musicians that you go into the studio with, or how does that work? I mean, I've seen on your videos that you work with some other musicians. Do you actually have a band that goes in there with you, or how does that work?
Well, this time I've actually taken quite a lot of it myself. So Rob Grist is my drummer, and we went into the studio in October to get 5 tracks of drums down because I can't do that at home. But then from now on, I've just been working. So I've been playing bass. I haven't really got keys on anything yet, but I would definitely get someone to do that for me if need be. But quite a lot of it's just guitar and vocals. So there are a few guitarists that I definitely want to collaborate with because I want just to be able to work with some of the people that I've met in the past year. They are, they're the best at their craft, and I'm not the best in certain genres or certain, techniques of guitar playing. So I'm not going to be too sensitive about playing everything. But while I have the time, while I have the stuff, and while I'm still figuring songs out, I'm just not putting myself under that much pressure, but I'm just getting on with it myself. So there'll be the time to work with other musicians in the next few months. But right now I'm just getting my parts down.
So how is that in comparison to how you recorded Faux Americana? Can you talk a little bit about how you went about recording that and what that whole album was like to put together?
Yeah, so it was a sort of opportunist EP too, because I wanted to work with a producer called Ant West, who's gone on now to do really great things. But we had 4 days together, and it was just in his home studio, and we did 2 tracks. With, I will admit, programmed drums for the first 2, and then me playing guitars. He did a few backing vocals, but I think I played everything. And then Josephine Vandergut played piano on the first 2 tracks, so on Blues Duet and Fugitive. And he really helped with sort of structure and making them sound huge and big, big sort of big songs. And then I went to America and I went to Nashville, and it was another sort of a crazy evening really, where I ended up in the studio with a very, very talented producer, and we recorded 2 tracks. Well, mainly just the drums. We did everything live at the same time. So I did sing and play guitar at the same time. And my friend DJ Scully played bass. But we had this amazing drummer, and we just got Paperback and Melancholy Parade, which is now actually changed title. It's called Stars and Stripes, but on that EP it's Melancholy Parade. And then I took those stems home. I got handed those stems at the end of the evening, which was like 6 a.m. and was suddenly like, oh my God, I've just recorded in Nashville. That is a dream come true.
Yeah, that's great.
And then took those back to Bristol, back to England, and got my friend Jake Bright to produce it, and did a lot to it. So redid the vocals, redid guitars. But yeah, that was so, and that was just an EP, and that was just something that I needed to get out of my system really. And it was great. It was so much fun. I'm still really proud of it. And it was 4 years ago, but I do feel like I've changed. I feel like I'm a lot more confident with how I want to sound now. Whereas back then I was sort of a bit more malleable by producers. Just because I didn't know whether I wanted to be country or blues or rocky or acoustic or just, typical singer-songwriter or anything. I wasn't very prepared. Whereas now I feel like I've got my own identity, that I can still mix in all those genres, but I'll still sound like me as long as I, have artistic control over it.
Yeah, I love Melancholy Parade. It's probably my favorite song on that 4-song EP. I mean, it's just got a lot of personality in it, It's
cool.
Yeah, I love that song. So what is that about? Can you tell me a little bit about what the inspiration for that song was?
Yeah, so I actually wrote it when I was 15. My brother is he now works in publishing, but at the time he really wanted to be a poet, and I wasn't very good at writing lyrics. So I stole one of his notepads, and he had these, these lyrics about the war that was going on at the time. And I just wrote a song. It's not really, I don't know. It's sort of like it's storytelling, but it's not a definite take on my political stance or anything like that. It's more just, I think the song kind of speaks for itself in terms of what was going on and how sort of miserable it was for certain people. But yeah, it wasn't. I wasn't very. I don't know. I didn't really have a political stance when I was 15. So it wasn't really meant to be sort of an anti-war song. It was just meant to be what I was feeling at the time, what my brother George had written. And we've got a military background in our family. Like my dad was in the army and he was in the first Gulf War. So it was just sort of saying it's all a bit pointless, really, isn't it, to do all this fighting.
Yeah.
But yeah. So it's got some quite dark lyrics in it, but that's why I thought it was quite cool to mix it with quite like a drop D guitar tuning, but acoustic guitar rather than like distorted guitar.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I like about it is it's not, there's definitely hooks in it, but it's not served on a silver platter. It's not like a generic singer-songwriter, folk pop type song. It's, the way that you enunciate words, just the personality in that song. It was unique, it goes in a lot of different directions vocally. I really enjoyed it. So.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you very much.
No problem. Fugitive is another one that stood out to me. It's a beautiful song. Can you talk a little bit about that? What's the story behind that song?
Oof, I wrote it quite a long time ago, so I'm trying to remember. And this is one of the reasons for documenting all the new stuff, because it's so easy to forget how it came about. But I think I will admit, I think I'd been listening to a lot of John Mayer, and so was getting a little bit more into intricate finger picking. I wasn't quite there yet, so it's quite like chordy. But yeah, I was interested in getting hooks in and telling a story without sort of giving too much away. And the reason it's called Fugitive, it doesn't actually say fugitive anywhere, was because there was a third verse that I ended up cutting out that sort of mentioned being a fugitive and, running away from something. But that it just never really fit into the song. So yeah, I still play it. And I still like sort of those big open chords, but with like little intricate finger picking guitar bits in it, if that's how to describe it.
No, it's how long do you, because you play a lot of shows. I mean, are you playing out like regularly, or how often do you play gigs?
Well, actually, for a long time, I was doing a lot, and I was gigging probably 3 or 4 times a week. And those weren't really original music shows. They were pub gigs and weddings and cover gigs and trying to earn a living. But I realized that although I enjoyed performing, I really, really enjoyed performing my own stuff more than doing that. So since September, since I started the job with Shaw, I haven't been gigging that much at all, other than the odd sort of showcase or odd support slot. But from the end of February and then through March, I've got 9 shows, 4 of which I'm supporting Mike Dawes on his acoustic tour. And then I've got 5 headline shows in the UK. So it's all UK based at the moment, but hopefully it will just sort of kick off more and more touring. But I'm not sure how much I'll get done for the rest of the year, because I'm still trying to build those sorts of relationships to get promoters on board and, try and get a booking agent maybe one day. But but performing is the thing that keeps me going when it comes to the music. Like, it's great making videos and it's great recording yourself, but to see people hear the songs and to get to play guitar live is the dream.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how much, when you're playing shows, do you kind of decide, if you're going to finish a song, or, I guess when you're playing live and you're testing some of these songs out, like, does that kind of play into your decision ultimately if you're going to record it and release it, or how does that work for you?
So again, it's changed. I think I gigged a lot of the songs that people have heard already through YouTube and through my performances on Andertons and just some of the other stuff that I've done. They've all been sort of tried and tested. They were gigged before they were recorded. Whereas now I've got a few songs that I'm recording first and then we'll gig. And it's just sort of two different ways of doing it, because I do feel like recording them first does make you really think about the song, more immediately than if you were out gigging it. Because when you're out gigging, you can change things up, especially if you're playing solo. You can muddle things around a bit more and see what works. But now I know what works within the shape of a song for a live performance. But, the live performance doesn't have to be the same as the studio track either. So they can be very different ways of working a song out of its shell.
So the new material that you're working on, can you give us any kind of an idea of what direction that's gone in since you've been doing, since A Faux Americana came out? What's the overall sound starting to shape out like?
It's a lot more natural than I ever thought I would go. So it's very guitar based. I'm going to release a song actually probably in the next week, and I'm going to just sort of push it out into the world and see how it does. And then come up with a strategy for the songs afterwards. But I just sort of want to get new music out there before the tour. So the first song that I'll be releasing is called Only You, and it's mainly electric, but it's quite calm. There isn't any like finger slapping like I like to do.
You're very good at that too. So,
well, thank you very much. But I know it's not for everyone. And I don't think it should be for every one of my songs. But I love it. I love playing that way. But yeah, this one it's quite a melancholy but happy love song, I guess. And then the track that's I'm working on right now in terms of recording is called A Little Bit of Madness. And that has, drums already recorded, and it's quite rocky in comparison to the other stuff that I've done. So I'm quite looking forward to just being able to shape my sound by not being too rigid and just do all the things that I love. Like, I love playing electric guitar. I'm going to explore electric guitar and all the versatility of it, of how you can have something quite sort of calming, and then you can have something really fuzzed up and rocky sounding, but all from the same singer-songwriter. So try and remain quite versatile, but still with my voice, still with my sort of guitar playing. So it will still sound like me.
Yeah, your guitar playing is great. I mean, I'm not I'm not blowing smoke. I mean, it's really neat. The slapping part is cool as a drummer primarily. It's cool because you can hear a beat. There's a rhythm to it. So it's kind of like you're your own drummer at the same time you're playing guitar. So I dig it. I think it's probably not something that you're wanting to do all the time because you want variety, but it's a good thing to throw in there.
Yeah, and it really stemmed from playing as a solo artist. So every time I was doing a pub gig, there was a way of me playing guitar, bass, and drums all at the same time. So it's something to adapt when I'm playing with a drummer. I don't need to do it when I'm playing with the drummer, but my Rob is very sensitive when he feels like it is part of the song and part of the guitar part, that he sort of steps back and he doesn't sort of take that beat away from me in a way. But yeah, and it's a timekeeping mechanism for me too, because I'm more of a singer than I am a guitarist, and singers are very known for rushing and trying to push ahead. So when you're a guitarist and having to try and chill out and keep a groove to then sing on top of it at the same time, I had to really find a way to keep myself from rushing ahead, and that was also trained by using a loop pedal too. So I always had to stick to the loop pedal because that was the set time.
Yeah, it's funny because, for this last song that I just recorded, I did the scratch guitar tracks at home to a click and then took them in the studio. And my buddy runs a studio in Detroit area here, and we record all the drums there. And I could hear on the guitar parts, me pushing it a little bit. And as a drummer, I tend to lay back a little bit. So, he's in the back, and he's one of those guys, thankfully when I mix the song, he's the one friend that I've got, he will just tell me completely what he thinks. There's no, sugarcoating it, which is really what you need when you're trying to, get some help on stuff like that. But, being a guitarist and a drummer, you can kind of tell, like, you play guitar one way, you tend to play drums another way. It's just a different feel,
Yeah, and I've really noticed and had to sort of find a way to keep myself in time when I am playing to a click, because if I'm just playing to a click and just playing a guitar along to it, no matter how much I think it's in time, as soon as you get a drum part on it, whether it's just like a sample drum part or an actual drummer, you'll realize how not in time it can be, even though it sounds in time when it's just you and the click track yourself, and just playing it back. So now I really almost dislike just pure click tracks, and I need a pulse in there as well, just because I think I hear drums and I stay in time to drums much more than just like a click, a metronome.
Right. One of the things that I've been talking to other guests about is, how music is kind of connected to our memories, so you can think about, when I hear this song, it reminds me of the first time I picked up a guitar. Or when I hear this song, it reminds me of, this memory I had. How does that work for you? Do you think in terms of that at all? Like, can you think of a song and instantly kind of recall a memory from it?
Do you mean in terms of my own music or someone else's music?
Someone else's music, like things that you've been influenced by. So what would be some examples for you, if you could think of that on the spot?
So I mentioned him earlier, but John Mayer's Stop This Train, I remember being 18 and hearing it for the first time, which was quite late because it had been out for a while. But it was on the Where the Light Is album. And I just remember being at university. I think it was my first year of university, and it was raining and I was having to walk 45 minutes to a lecture or something like that. And I just remember putting on that song on repeat and then walking home in the dark, listening to that song and hearing every sort of intricacy from the live performance of it, and just the way that he played guitar and the chord choices and watching, trying to figure it out. So yeah, and then with other songs like Joni Mitchell and Tracy Chapman and I don't know, like Earth, Wind and Fire and Phoenix and all these bands that my parents really liked and I enjoyed too because of hearing them via them. They just remind me of car journeys to school and being really cold winters in England and just wishing that I was in California listening to Joni Mitchell and wishing for warm times rather than cold English mornings. But yeah, I think music, it can transport you, and that's the power of it, and that's why I still want to do it, and I want to hear those stories if anyone ever feels that way about my stuff, because it's so reminiscent, it's so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, not to get corny or anything, but the first time I heard one of your originals was after I watched a couple different YouTube videos, and I don't know when this happened, but I think like maybe a couple of years ago, I started to really get into paying more attention to YouTube. It's like I always knew it was there, but I didn't really get the whole community of it and all the people that are collaborating with each other. And I just became kind of fascinated by like, wow, this person in, Oregon is like connecting with this person in Windsor and connecting with this person in England, So to me, it's fascinating. But I think you were doing a cover of something, and I don't remember what the cover was. But then I'm like, I'm going to, on my way to work, I have like an hour drive in to work. So I pulled up Spotify and pulled up the Faux Americana CD, and I was like, wow, this is unique. I have not really heard anything like this. It was very different than what I was expecting here, because you were doing covers and you put your own spin on it, but I hadn't heard any originals yet. So your music definitely stood out to me. So I do remember when I heard it. So.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. So what about favorite albums? I mean, just in general, like what are some albums that you still listen to today that that you've been listening to since early on?
Good question. In terms of early on, I don't know if I still listen to quite a lot of the music that I was growing up with. There's the odd time that I will put on a Joni Mitchell album. Andy McKee, the acoustic guitarist, I recently, when I was in California, I went driving up the 101, and I put on my iPad, which had all my bought music from iTunes from years ago. And I was listening to like Andy McKee and Beyonce and really cheesy artists that I was like, oh my God, I remember listening to the song over and over and over. Because weirdly enough, I do love pop music, which is terrible to admit, because I know some people will really judge me, but I'm a sucker for a pop tune. But I'm just trying to think, I'm like looking at my vinyl records, which is probably like the most album listening that I do. And most of it's just St. Vincent or Anna Calvi, Haim or however they pronounce themselves. John Mayer, obviously. What else? I've got a Frank Sinatra one. Oh, and Future Islands. So like weird taste of music. I have such a, I'm not, I don't not listen to anything, if you know, you know what I mean.
No, I think the funny thing is the whole pop thing. So if I was being honest with somebody and they said, well, what's the first real concert you went to? I went to a Paula Abdul concert when I was probably 13.
I think that's quite a good one. That's quite a good one to admit, because mine's way more embarrassing. I think they were an English band. I'm not sure if they ever hit the States properly, but they were called Busted. And they were supported by McFly, and they were just these pop boy bands, but they played guitars, and that's why I liked listening to them. But at the same time, like I was listening to music by The Offspring and Muse, and all these slightly heavier things like Atreyu and Avenged Sevenfold and stuff like that. So yeah, I haven't listened to quite a lot of those albums for a long time.
Yeah, my second concert was Megadeth, and then I've seen them probably 11 times since then, and I've met Dave Mustaine three times. So yeah, I'm a little bit of a. I love that stuff, but I'm not. I grew up with my parents playing Billy Joel and the Beatles and the Beach Boys all the time. So my sense of melody is, I'm a huge Billy Joel fan. I love his music. And I noticed you had talked about the Beatles in one of your videos, how you actually studied them at university. What was that all about? How do you study the Beatles in college?
Well, especially it was a classical music degree as well. So when they said, okay, we're going to study pop culture in the 60s, I was like, what? Okay. So I took that course, and I'm going to be honest, I was really naive about the Beatles for a very, very long time. They weren't the reason for me getting into songwriting. They weren't really anything to do with my sort of musical upbringing. My parents didn't really listen to them. And I think I don't know whether you've heard the sort of thing about you don't really listen to what your parents listen to. There can be quite a generational gap. So my grandparents were listening to the Beatles and that sort of thing. But anyway, so my dad loved the Rolling Stones. So I would listen to them on car journeys with him. And the Beatles never really got a look in. So when learning about them and learning the musicality behind the songwriting and the studio techniques, I was blown away with how they tackled all those sort of problems and just multi-tracking, how they did it and in Abbey Road. And yeah, I was quite impressed. And then their musical influences too, and the sort of, adding in a sitar every so often, and the harmonies and how they weren't really trained musicians, but they just sort of worked it out. And yeah, I thought they were, I know what amazing impact they had on the world and on pop music now. But I was quite naive to it until university. So thankfully, my classical music course did something good for me.
Have you read that book, Here, There, and Everywhere? The recording of the Beatles? Oh my gosh. You have to check that out. It's awesome. I read it in a single train ride back and forth to Chicago, and it's fascinating. They get into the recording of it, but it's all told from the perspective of Jeff Emmerich, which was the guy that engineered everything between Revolver and the White Album.
Oh, wow.
And it gets...
I'm going to add that to my Amazon list.
It's hilarious. Like some of the stuff, because there's a little bit about him at the beginning, but it's all talking about like, when they were recording the Beatles back then at Abbey Road, everybody had to wear white lab coats, and they were freaking out when Jeff Emmerich went to go put the mic in front of the bass drum so close, and they, it's like, you can't do that, you're going to blow the microphone up. There's so many things that they did that changed the way that music was recorded. They pushed so many boundaries and took so many chances. There's a lot of funny stories about John Lennon like not wanting to hear his voice and giving crazy demands out, like I want to sound like I'm being dangled from the ceiling, and the microphone is like all this crazy stuff. And it's like he had to kind of figure out like what the hell is he actually talking about, like what is he really trying to make it sound like. So there's a lot of funny stories in there, a lot of really cool stuff about Revolver and the White Album. It's pretty fascinating. You should give it a listen or give it a read if you can.
I will do. Thanks for the recommendation.
Yeah, for sure. It's pretty neat. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know it's getting a little bit later on your end, but I just had a couple more questions for you, if you don't mind.
Of course.
GitCon. So that looked like a lot of fun. Tell me a little bit about that experience for you.
It was amazing. It was a boot camp of video making, of interviewing, of really coming up with things on the spot, and teamwork as well. Like we all helped each other out, and we all featured obviously in each other's content. And I was the smallest person there in terms of like YouTube stats, and that didn't even matter. Like no one cared, and everyone was so accommodating and lovely and, appreciative of that we all do something slightly different. And yeah, I was very, very happy to be invited. I was very excited to go, and it turned out to be a massive success. And yeah, made a lot of good friends that week.
So how did you get involved with that? Like who was it that you knew that, because I think Henning is the one that arranged that whole thing with Framus, right? Is he the one that actually started pulling that together? Yeah, it was all down to him, really. He worked so hard, and he invited us all, and yeah, and he, poor thing, like he didn't really know how it was going to go or what we were all going to do there, because we all work so differently. So, he managed to set up these video rooms, which worked for some people. For me, I liked actually being out and about and, doing a bit more sort of vlogging style and a sort of taking people into the Guitar Factory and interviewing them in there. But yeah, and I don't think he barely got any videos shot whatsoever, because he was just
helping everyone else out. So yeah, it was his baby. But I think there's going to be another one. I don't know whether I'll get invited to that, but I had a great time. It was really intense. We were filming from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. every day, and then we were live streaming from 8 p.m. till 11 p.m. So everyone sort of had to be on their best behavior all the time. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's so many interesting videos that came out of that, especially the one where you teamed up with Leo to do Hard Knock Life.
I know, that was amazing. It was so out of this world to be in one of his videos, and then to really be able to let rip and like sing and be in this heavy metal version of the Annie song. It was very, very funny.
Yeah, he does. My wife finds out about all these people too, because I'm always, I think I watch YouTube more than I watch regular TV. It's usually like HBO and Westworld and stuff like that, or it's or YouTube and or hockey, one of those three. But you guys put out some really cool things. I mean, seeing Rabia collaborate with different people, and Glenn, obviously I met Glenn, and I think, is it Scott Baker? He was the one that was doing, basically getting in a room. I think he did it with Pete Thorne, where they were doing something on, exchanging riffs. Robert Baker. I'm sorry.
Yes,
yeah. Robert. Yeah. I met him at Gearfest too, and he seems like such a nice guy. But to be in a room with him trading off riffs like that, I mean, like there was everybody there just seems so talented at what they do. There was so many talented people in one area. It was kind of like, wow, that's quite a feat to pull all them people together, and all the quality content that was developed in a short period of time is pretty amazing. Yeah.
My favorite video is still, although I shot for it and then they used a different bit, but the turning a plexi up to 10 with Pete. Yeah. And I did actually go in with Phil X's XG into that, and it screamed so loudly. And then I went in a bit afterwards and and then just used the volume on a Fender Strat so that I could actually sort of breathe, because it was so visceral and it was so loud. It was just like earth-shatteringly loud. But yeah, all those sorts of ideas, all those people, they were just so talented. Like someone like Pete Thorne, and you just think of the things that he has done in his life, and then he was there and he was talking to all of us, and that pedal show guys were so humble, and everyone was just so cool and relaxed, and up for just making some good stuff, and taking the opportunity, because we were all slightly out of our comfort zone. Because if you're doing everything in your home studio and you have control, and you have control over editing and that sort of thing, to then be in front of like a live switching system, it's quite different. It's a very different art form. But it was just amazing. There were definitely people that I didn't get to spend enough time with that I would have liked to talk to more, like Martin Miller and Robert Baker, amongst the others. But yeah, it was really cool. It was way better than all of us even could have imagined.
Yeah, that performance that you did with was it Dan and Mick from that pedal show? Is that their names?
Yeah, Mick and Dan. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. That was so good. You guys harmonized so well together. That was really, really cool to hear.
Well, they're really good singers, and they don't get to show that off enough. So hopefully there'll be more collaborations with them soon, because they actually live quite near me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. They're really great, and they sing. They're just as good at guitar as they are at singing, if not the other way around. So like, they need to do more of that. They need to get some new original music out there, which I think they're working on.
That's great. Well, hey, I won't keep you longer. I really appreciate you taking some time to. This podcast is pretty early in its development, so you being on is honestly much appreciated. So
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. I actually have something I want to share with you after we get offline here. I'll send it to you. I've got a link to a song I just had mastered, so I thought I'd share something with you since you took some time with me, and let me know what you think about it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
So no problem. Well, Mary, hopefully we can do this again sometime. I appreciate it with the time difference, and it's can be challenging. So thank you again for doing it.
No problem.
All right. You have a great night. Thank you.
All right. You too.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, so that was my interview with Mary Spender. I want to thank Mary so much for her time, and thank you for listening all through this episode so far. Got a treat for you. If you stay on for just a few more minutes, I'm actually going to go ahead and play my favorite track from Mary so far, called Melancholy Parade, off of the 2014 EP Faux Americana. But first, please do me a favor, go to iTunes, hit that subscribe button for the Warm Chord Music Podcast. If you like what you've heard so far, go to YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you don't mind. You can find me on Twitter at Warm Chord Music, and you can also find me on Instagram. So I'm going to be trying to get a lot more active on social media. There's a lot more going on these days, especially with the website. So if you haven't been there yet, that's simply just warmchordmusic.com. You're going to hear a lot more about the new song coming out. One of my new episodes on the podcast is actually going to feature discussion with some of the folks that helped me get that song out. So everything from the writing to the recording and mixing, mastering, and artwork, really. We're going to try and cover all that stuff just to kind of give you an idea of what went into that. Just really some thoughts from each step of that process so that you get an idea of really what was going through my head getting that song put together, especially with the challenge of working with remote session singers, which was really one of the things that made that song so special, but at the same time so challenging to pull together. So anyway, I just want to, again, thank you for listening, and let's go ahead and play Melancholy Parade from Mary Spender. Thanks so much, guys.
I saw lines of soldiers returning home, wearing wooden overcoats. Melancholy parade. Can you see the difference that they've made? No more gods and no more masters. Take the deaths and put them past us. Scattered voices strike a chord. Put your guns down and sheath your swords. Put your guns down and sheath your swords. I began to look closely at my skin and realized the stars and stripes were seeping in. I saw a bunch of colors and they did my eyes some harm. Only then did I comprehend that I was in charge. I saw towers fall and people die. I saw the hunt for terror and the terrified, melancholy state. People moving, constantly afraid. No more gods and no more masters. Take the deaths and put them past us. Scattered voices strike a chord. Put your guns down and sheath your swords. Put your guns down and sheath your swords.